The wheels of my suitcase caught on a crack in the driveway and I almost tripped. That should have been my sign. My mom was already at the door before I even made it to the porch. Not waving, not smiling, just standing there with her arms crossed and this look on her face like she was checking something off a list. My name is Tessa. Tessa Bowman. I'm 31 years old, I live in Chicago, and up until about 4 months ago, I was the kind of daughter who answered every phone call on the first ring. I want to tell you what happened the weekend I flew back to Columbus for my cousin's graduation party. But first, I need you to understand something about my family, because without that context, none of this will make sense. My mom is the youngest of 4 siblings. She married my dad young, had me and my brother Kyle, and then spent the next 30 years being the family glue. The one who organized every holiday, remembered every birthday, kept score of every favor ever done and never done. She is sharp and she is loving and she is, without question, the most strategically minded person I have ever met in my life. I say that with full awareness of what it means. I moved to Chicago 6 years ago for a job in hospital administration. I worked my way up, got my master's degree on nights and weekends, and now I manage operations for a mid-sized medical group on the north side. I make decent money. Not rich, but stable. I own my condo. I have a 401(k). I do not have a husband or kids, which in my family is treated as a personal failing on my part, and also, conveniently, as proof that I have time to help. My brother Kyle is 34. He has 3 kids, ages 7, 5, and 2, with his wife Sandra. They live 20 minutes from my parents in a house that's perpetually one broken appliance away from crisis. Kyle works in HVAC and Sandra waitresses part-time. They are not bad people. They are stretched thin and they lean on my parents constantly, and by extension, they lean on my parents constantly, and by extension, they lean on me. Here's what I had contributed over the prior 18 months. I co-signed Kyle's truck loan because his credit was too low. I sent $400 one January because their furnace went out and they were short on the repair. I bought all 3 of my nieces and nephews' school supplies the previous fall, which was supposed to be a one-time thing and then became an expectation. I paid for my mom's flight to come visit me in Chicago for her birthday because she said she couldn't afford it. And then 2 weeks later, she mentioned in passing that she and my dad had bought a new living room set. I did not say anything about that. I just noted it. None of this was asked outright. That's the thing about my family. Nobody asks. They imply, they mention, they sigh loudly on the phone and let the silence sit there until you fill it. The graduation party was for my cousin on my dad's side, Aunt Patrice's youngest, finishing her associate's degree. The party was a Saturday in June, backyard barbecue, the whole extended family. My mom called 3 weeks before and said she really wanted me to come, that the whole family was going to be there. That Aunt Patrice specifically asked about me. I looked at flights. Round trip from Chicago to Columbus on a weekend was not cheap. I found one for $287 and I hesitated, but my mom said it would mean so much and I booked it. She called again the following week. "Oh, by the way," she started. And I want you to notice those words, because in my family, "oh, by the way," is how every significant request begins. Kyle and Sandra are going to use that weekend to get away. Just the 2 of them. They really need it, Tessa. They haven't had a night alone in almost 2 years. I said that sounded nice. So the kids will be at our place that weekend. I said okay, and since you'll be there anyway. There it was. I told her I was coming for the graduation party. She said of course, but that it would be so helpful if I could spend some time with the kids while she and Dad were at the party, since 3 kids under 8 at a party like that would be too chaotic. I said I wanted to be at the party too. She said I could come for a few hours in the morning and then come back to the house with the kids. I should have said no then, I know that. But I told myself it would be fine, that I'd figure it out when I got there. That it was one weekend. I landed Friday evening. Kyle picked me up from the airport because my parents were already doing something with the kids. He was in a good mood, talking about the hotel he and Sandra had booked in Hocking Hills, how they were going to do a hike and just sleep and eat and not hear the word mom for 48 hours. I smiled and said that sounded amazing. We pulled into my parents' driveway and my mom came out the front door before I even had my seatbelt off. "Good you're here," she said, already turning back inside. "Lily's been asking for you all day." Lily is 5. She is my niece, and she is genuinely the sweetest child I've ever met, which made everything harder. Inside, the house was loud. The baby, I'll call him the baby because he's 2 and still acts like one, was in a full-volume meltdown in the living room. Lily was sitting on the couch watching something on an iPad with headphones on, completely detached from the chaos around her. Mason, the 7-year-old, was eating cereal at the kitchen table even though it was 6:30 in the evening. And nobody seemed to think that was unusual. My dad was in the garage. My dad is in the garage during most things. My mom handed me the baby almost immediately. Not asked. Handed. I held him because I love him. But I stood in that kitchen holding a screaming 2-year-old and looked around at the scene, and I felt something shift in my chest. Not anger, not yet, more like clarity. The kind that arrives slowly and then all at once. We did dinner. My mom had made a big pot of chili and cornbread. The kids settled down. After bedtime, which took an hour and involved 3 separate negotiations with Mason about screen time, I finally sat down at the kitchen table with my parents and a cup of decaf, and I said, clearly, that I was planning to be at the party tomorrow for most of the afternoon. My mom nodded in this way that didn't fully commit to anything. "We'll figure it out," she said. My dad said it was good to have me home. I went to bed telling myself it would be fine. Saturday morning, Kyle and Sandra left at 8. Sandra hugged me and said, "You're a lifesaver, Tess." I had not agreed to be anyone's lifesaver. I had not been asked. But she was already pulling a roller bag to Kyle's truck, and the door was closing behind her. The party didn't start until 1. My mom had said I could come for a few hours in the morning, which I had understood to mean I would be there for the morning and then go to the party. What it apparently meant, I discovered at about 11:15 when my mom came downstairs in a yellow blouse with her purse on her shoulder, was something else entirely. "We're going to go help Patrice set up," she said. "She needs extra hands early." I looked at her. "All 3 kids are still here." "I know, honey. That's why it's so great that you're here." My dad was behind her with his keys in his hand, giving me the look he always gives me when he knows something is wrong but has made a separate peace with not engaging. I said, "Mom, I'm supposed to be at this party too." She said, "You'll come later. Once they're settled." "Settled when?" "The party ends at 5. Tessa. Her voice got that particular texture, the one that means we are done discussing this and also that I am being unreasonable. "It's one afternoon. Your brother needed this. I understand that. But I bought a plane ticket to come to this graduation, and I would like to actually go." She did this thing where she exhaled through her nose and looked at the ceiling briefly, like she was asking God for patience. "We'll be back by 3, she said. "You can go then." They left. I stood in my parents' kitchen. The kitchen I grew up in, with the same rooster print curtain over the sink and the same magnet calendar on the fridge. And I looked at 3 children who were not mine. And I thought about my $287 flight and my condo in Chicago and my actual life. And I made a decision, not an angry decision. Just a clear one. I called my Aunt Patrice. I apologized and explained I was stuck with the kids and might not make it. She was gracious. She also let slip without meaning to, that my mom had told her 2 weeks ago that I would probably be helping with the kids that day and might not make it to the party. 2 weeks ago. Before I had even agreed to anything. I sat with that for a minute. Then I got the kids dressed, loaded them into my mom's minivan. My mom had left me the keys, which told me this was always the plan, and I drove them to the party myself. And I stayed. Because here is what I decided. I was not going to miss my cousin's graduation celebration and fold laundry at my parents' house while my mom handed out plates of potato salad 20 minutes away. If I was going to manage 3 children, I was going to do it somewhere I actually wanted to be. The kids were fine. Lily danced with Aunt Patrice's neighbor's dog. Mason found some older boys playing cornhole and attached himself to them with the kind of confidence 7-year-olds have that the rest of us lose. The baby fell asleep in the stroller I'd found folded up in the back of the minivan. My mom saw me arrive and her expression did several things at once. Surprise, calculation, a quick recovery into a smile. "Oh, you figured it out," she said. "I did," I said. We did not discuss it further at the party. But that night, after the kids were asleep again and my dad had gone to bed and it was just me and my mom at the kitchen table, I said what I needed to say. Calmly. Without crying. Which took effort. I told her I knew this weekend had been planned without my input. I told her I was glad I came and glad I got to see Aunt Patrice and the family, but that I was not going to keep being managed. I used that word. Managed. Her chin went up slightly when I said it. I told her I was happy to be present in this family. I was not willing to be deployed. She said I was being dramatic. I said that was fine. She could think that. She said Kyle and Sandra needed support right now. I said I understood that and I loved Kyle's kids, but that I had bought a plane ticket to Columbus and spent the weekend as unpaid childcare without being asked, and I needed her to understand why that wasn't okay. She said, "You're the only one who can do this, Tessa. You don't have a family of your own." I had been waiting for that sentence my entire adult life. I knew it was coming eventually. And even though I knew it, even though I had rehearsed what I would say, it still landed somewhere tender. I took a breath. I said, "Not having kids of my own is exactly why my time is mine, not yours, not Kyle's, mine." She didn't say anything. I said I was going to fly home tomorrow as planned, and that going forward I would need actual conversations and actual agreements before I showed up for anything. Not implications. Not, "Oh, by the way." Real conversations. She said she heard me. I am still not entirely sure she did. I flew home Sunday morning. I sat in the window seat and watched Ohio get smaller, and I did not feel relief exactly. It was more complicated than that. There was grief in it, the way there's grief in finally saying a true thing out loud. Because once it's said, you can't pretend the situation was ever anything other than what it was. But here's what I want you to sit with. Because this is the part that took me longest to understand. It wasn't the one weekend. It was never just the one weekend. It was the $400 for the furnace and the school supplies and the flight I bought my mom in the truck loan, and every phone call that started with, "I don't want to ask you, but," and ended with me saying yes before they finished the sentence. I was not a bad daughter. I was not a bad sister. I was an extremely available one, and in my family, available had become synonymous with responsible for. Those are not the same thing. Here's what I changed after I got home. I did not call Kyle to check in the following weekend, which I normally would have done. I did not send the "just thinking of you guys" Venmo I sometimes sent when I knew they were tight. I did not respond to my mom's texts asking if I could look at flights for Thanksgiving and let her know what dates worked. I waited. Not to punish anyone, just to stop filling the silence. A week passed. Then my mom called, and instead of the usual tone, the warm one with the undercurrent of expectation, her voice was different, more careful. She asked how I was doing. Actually asked, and waited. I said I was good. Busy. That I'd been thinking a lot. She said she had been too. We talked for almost an hour. Not about logistics. Not about Kyle's schedule or the kids' needs or who could take what weekend. Just about things. She told me about a book she'd been reading. I told her about a work project I was proud of. At the end, she said, "I think I took advantage of how capable you are." She didn't say sorry, not in those exact words. But she said that. I said, "I know you didn't mean it that way." She said, "I'm not sure that matters." Which was the most honest thing I had heard her say in years. I don't know what the next holiday is going to look like. I genuinely don't. I might go home and it might be different, or I might go home and find myself holding a screaming toddler again while somebody else walks out the door with their keys in their hand. I can't predict that. What I know is that I'm not going to fix it in advance by making myself smaller. I spent a long time trying to be useful enough that people would stop asking so much of me, which is the most irrational bargain I have ever made with myself, because being useful to a family that sees you as a resource only ever makes them need more. I am not a resource, I am a person. And honestly, I think part of my mom knows that now. It's still early. We're still figuring out what this new version of us looks like. But I have stopped dreading her calls, which is more than I could say 3 months ago. Before I let you go, I want to know something. If you have ever been the person in your family that everyone turns to, not because you volunteered, but because you were available, or capable, or just couldn't bring yourself to say no, I want to know if you've ever found a way through it. or if you're still in the middle of it, because I don't think I'm alone in this, and I don't think you are either. Let me know what time it is wherever you're watching from. And if this story hit close to home, you already know what to do. There's a version of the story where I stay quiet, where I hold the baby, watch the door close, and spend the weekend doing exactly what was planned for me without my input. I have lived that version many times before. I know exactly how it ends, with me on a Sunday flight back to Chicago feeling vaguely hollow, telling myself it wasn't a big deal, that family is complicated, that I'm lucky I can help. What I've learned, slowly and with some resistance, is that lucky I can help is not a feeling. It's a story I was telling myself so I didn't have to sit with the harder truth that I had trained the people I loved to expect my availability as a given, and that I had done that by never once letting there be a consequence for taking it. I don't blame my mom entirely. I think she genuinely did not see what she was doing. When you're the one who keeps showing up, people stop asking themselves whether you want to. They just start counting on it. The math makes sense from where they're standing. It's only from where you're standing, holding a screaming 2-year-old in a kitchen that isn't yours, watching a minivan back out of the driveway, that the math looks completely different. What changed for me that Saturday wasn't rage. I want to be clear about that because I think people expect the breaking point to be explosive. It wasn't. It was quiet. It was me standing there in my parents' kitchen, looking at Lily's little face on the couch with her headphones on, and thinking, I can either disappear into this weekend the way I've disappeared into every other one, or I can make a different choice. So I loaded 3 kids into the minivan and I drove to the party. That one decision, small, almost absurd, was the most honest thing I had done in my family in years. Because what it said, without any dramatic speech or tearful confrontation, was, I am a person who is also here, not just a function, not just the capable one. A person who bought a plane ticket and wanted to eat potato salad and hug her Aunt Patrice and watch her cousin wakeshift stage in a backyard in Columbus. The conversation with my mom that night was not easy, but I have come to believe that the conversations that matter rarely are. What she said, that she wasn't sure it mattered that she hadn't meant any harm, is something I've thought about a lot since then. Because I think that's actually wisdom, even if it arrived awkwardly. Intent doesn't cancel impact. Loving someone and taking advantage of them are not mutually exclusive. Both things can be true at once, and pretending otherwise doesn't help either person. Tessa, this version of me, is still figuring out the new shape of things, but I am no longer afraid of the silence I used to rush to fill. I started to understand that my willingness to wait, to let the ask actually be made out loud, is not coldness. It's respect, for myself, and honestly, for the people I love too. Because when everything is assumed, nothing is chosen. And chosen is the only kind of help that means anything.